Okay.
Here we go. Welcome, replay viewers, and welcome everyone who's tuning in right now. This is our first episode of Talking with Teachers, and we're really excited to be here. As we wait for people to roll in, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing today. Hi, Naomi. Welcome today to the conversation. We're going to be speaking with Dena from Oregon, who's a fourth grade teacher, and we're really excited to have her here and learn a bit from her about her teaching practices, how she uses Edulastic, and have a really great conversation with the education community, hopefully, about this upcoming year, and hopefully everyone who is involved and joins will be inspired for things for the future. It looks like we have Jamie. Oh, let's block that person. How do we block them? How do I block a block user? Okay. All right. So it looks like we have some people who are joining so far. Welcome to the broadcast. Why don't we just jump right into it? Oh, and welcome Matt, who is also on the Edulastic Innovator team. Glad to have you here. So again, we're here with Dena, and she has been teaching for about 18 years. She's from Shasta Elementary School, teaches fourth grade, is up in Oregon right now, and has been on the Edulastic Innovator team for the last 3 years. So she knows a lot about Edulastic, has used it with a lot of teachers. We're so happy to be kicking off this series with her. So thank you again for being here, Dena. Appreciate it.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so let's just dive right into it. We're going to start out by asking you back to the basics. Why did you become a teacher?
All right. I, of course, had a sixth grade teacher that highly motivated me and honestly changed my life. And so I want to be that for my students. I want to be that for other kids. I want to be that person. I'm reading The Wild Card right now, and that has really motivated me and reminded me this year that no matter what gets thrown at us, you know, whether it's over crowded classrooms or very strict curriculum or lack of funding or lack of support, that we, the teacher, we are the wild card, and we're the ones that have to make the difference for the kids. And so reading the book this year, it's just really helped remind me of that, and that's why I became a teacher, that I want to be the wild card, and I want to be the person that helps motivate kids to learn and to want to be at school.
That's awesome. And I like that you're bringing up a book because today is National Book Lovers Day. So that's very relevant.
Right.
Yeah. So everyone check out that book. Wild Card, you said?
Yeah, it's called The Wild Card.
Who's it by? Do you know? Author?
I don't remember their names. No, it's a husband and wife team.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Nice. And can you tell us a little bit more about that teacher that inspired you? That's amazing. You can pinpoint it.
She was my sixth grade teacher, and she was able to, again, just engage us and help us learn things that may not have been that engaging, but it was just in her delivery and in her style that she taught us things. And she went above and beyond the curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so some of the things she taught us about life and health choices, that's what, you know, as far as referring to, that she really actually affected my life in a huge way of making me want to be healthy and be a runner and do these things that have carried through for, you know, the last 20, 30 years. And I really strive to be that teacher for my kids also. And I have to say, too, it was really strange because when I moved back to my hometown, she actually was my sub. She would sub for me the last 2 years.
That's awesome. That's so great to have your mentor like that you're working with.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. That's really awesome. Okay, so now that you are a teacher, thanks to the inspiration of the sixth grade teacher, what is it that you love about teaching? What gets you motivated each day?
I think probably my very favorite thing is when kids want to be at school, when they want to be in my classroom, and when I have parents come in and say, you know, my student really hasn't loved school for the last few years, and, you know, I have to drag them out of bed, and I have to drag them on the bus. And when I have parents come in and say, this is the first time in 4 years that my child gets up on their own, and my child wants to be at school, and because when they want to be there, that's half the battle. And then I know that I'm engaging them, and then I know that I'm having some success. You know, if they want to be there, that's a win.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. So sounds like you've had really awesome motivation for your sixth grade teacher. You're making a really great place and space for your students. When do you start school this year, and how are you going to set the tone for the scene. And also, I just want to mention to everyone who's joining now, welcome. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to comment in the chats. We're chatting with Dena, who's a fourth grade teacher in Oregon, and she's sharing her insights as we move into the year and about how she incorporates digital assessment into her classroom. So, so how are you going to set the scene this year, and what are you looking forward to?
We start the Tuesday after Labor Day, so I still have a few more weeks to get motivated to get back to work.
Or enjoy summer.
Yes. I think, I have super high expectations for my students, and so I have to set those expectations for myself also. So I know that I have to be the best I can be, and I'm always striving to learn new things or relearn things. We learned strategies 10 years ago and we forget about them. And so, I always want to learn and relearn and just, again, if I expect my students to be the best, then I have to do everything I can to keep my game at the top of its level too.
Awesome. Definitely. And Matt, who I believe is Jason, says thank you for sharing with us. So far. I just want to say that. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. That's great. And I love that idea of being the best you can be so that you're setting the tone for your students. I think that they can probably feel the energy you're putting out and understand that you mean business and you want to see them succeed. So that's good.
Yes.
Cool. So here you are chatting with us at Edulastic. What brought you to Edulastic? What's your story? Why did you consider using digital assessment? What got you started?
All right. I went to a state technology conference about 3 or 4 years ago, and they introduced Edulastic to me, and just it was a game changer from that first moment. It was a game changer. So after I came back to my classroom, and I was lucky enough to be one-to-one with Chromebooks with my students, and so we just jumped right in with Edulastic, and I kind of started doing a few of like my end of unit math assessments with it. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And now I do my pre-test, my post-test, my mid-module tests, everything. All of my math tests are completely done through Edulastic. And I just feel like I get so much data from my students or from the Edulastic. Reference pages and resources, and also it helps so much prepare my students for testing with all the different types of questions that are available.
That's awesome.
Then I also experimented a little bit with some of the science questions and science stuff, and this year, I told you earlier, this year we're jumping all in with reading this year. We're going to get together next week. We have a date next week with my other fourth grade teachers, and we're going to move all of our reading and ELA assessments into Edulastic also. So I've got my whole team on board now. Nice. And as far as advancing it even, I've started to do my own trainings now. And so I lead trainings within the district. And maybe about 4 months ago, I did a training for all the secondary math teachers in our whole district. It was about 25 teachers, and they just did the same thing as they just fell in love with it, and they jumped in with both feet, and they have changed all of their unit tests to Edulastic also for the high school level. So they created them together, and they shared them, and so they've created all of their secondary math assessments through Edulastic also.
Cool. That's awesome. Seems like it's just kind of grown. And really picked up. So what do you think is that like one thing that maybe when you saw it you thought, that's it, I gotta go with this, when you came across Edulastic?
I think there's so many benefits to it. Probably immediately the one thing that drew me to it was the self-grading, that it grades the test for you. We spend so much time at home as teachers doing extra work, and the fact that it instantly grades it, one, it saves me time from grading papers, but it also gives me instant data that I can use immediately when my kids are taking a math test and I see that 18 out of 24 of them missed the same question. I know there's a problem immediately. I don't have to wait to the next day. I can literally stop right then and say, okay, let's relook at this question, and figure out why are we missing this question. Right. So I think, that instant feedback, and then the next level of it is after we're done and I've taken, 5 or 6 different tests, then I can really look at strand data and student data. And it really is such a lifesaver, time saver, game changer. It's just an incredible resource.
That's awesome. And I'm curious, how much time do you think you save each week by having the auto grading?
Well, depending on class size, I had 35 kids at one point and trying to grade math tests. It's literally an hour and a half just to grade the test. But then also I would try to go through the test and say, okay, question number 4 is the standard. Well, how many of the kids missed question number 4? And I mean, that could take hours too. On top of that, trying to make my own standards or strand data to see which strand they were struggling with. I'd sit with a piece of paper, make little tally marks. Okay, 15 kids missed this question. And so I'm talking hours of time saved.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear. And you probably don't have to decipher their handwriting too, which is nice.
Yeah, I don't have to say, is that a 7 or a 9 or is that a 4?
Yeah. So math, who again I think is Jason, is asking, do you use the redirect option like for corrections?
I do. And again, I think different grade levels that might vary a little bit, but with my 4th grade students, because again, we really are also trying to focus on that growth mindset. And so I do let them, I will do redirect. And when the kids care enough, they come to me. I don't initiate it on my end, but if the kids come to me and say, I really blew it, can I take that again? And then I'll redirect to them. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really great. And are you finding how many students will come up to you and say that? Is that something that everyone feels comfortable with, or was it something that you had to say, hey, let me know?
Well, it's just a class policy. They know in my classroom, no matter what their assignment is, if they want a better grade, they can always resubmit it. They can always turn something back in. They can always correct mistakes. So they know that's a class policy. Nice. But I would say I might have 3 to 5 kids after each test come and say, man, can I take that again? And it wasn't always those A kids that want to have a better, higher A. I had a group of kids that, they would get a low C, and they'd be like, oh, my mom's not going to like that. Can I retake this? Yeah.
I need you as my teacher. So how often are you giving assessments in your classroom usually?
Well, right now we do, I don't do a pre-test on every module, but a mid-unit test and a post-test. So, like the 20-question assessment maybe twice a month, but then we're going to, again, transfer all of our exit tickets to Edulastic, and that would be daily, but that would be between maybe 3 and 5 questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Exit tickets. So kind of on the reg, you could say.
Yes.
Cool. And then how did it change? So you went from just you using Edulastic to a bunch of teachers in your school. How did that change things?
Again, it's a little bit challenging because I am one-to-one with Chromebooks, and not everybody in the school is. And so that's the big resistance that I get, is that they don't have access to the Chromebooks. But again, it's just a workaround. We have to find a way to work around it. And again, once they see the data that I'm pulling out for my kids, I'll be like, oh yeah, my kids need more practice in this standard. And they're like, how do you know that? So again, I think just showing them the evidence. And we have to write, I'm sure, I don't know if all states do, but we have to write our own teacher goals. And so I use Edulastic to write my goals. And so at the beginning of the year, I give all of the kids a 4th grade math test. And then I give the exact same test mid-year, and then the exact same test at the end of the year. And to be able to show that growth is huge. I mean, the kids, I think in my beginning of the year test, my class average was 18%.
Wow.
At the end of the year, my class average was 84%.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, huge to show growth. Your administrators, that growth. And so being able to write that. And then, so we started doing PLCs with our teams. And when I have this, to show my other teachers, they're like, where'd you get that data? Because our district mandated assessments don't give us this kind of data. And, they're trying to use, whether it's Star Math or Dibbles, or, they're trying to use these other district assessments, and they just don't give the same data. So it wasn't hard to convince them to start using Edulastic.
I hear you. Yeah, when you have that concrete data, it seems like it makes such a difference. That's really cool. I'm just thinking back, talking about the one in Chromebooks and trying to figure that out. I was reminded of this interview that we did with another teacher at some point, and she was saying that she dug into like the graveyard of technology and computers to pull out a set for her classroom so they could use digital assessment. And that ended up, even though they had this kind of rugged technology, that ended up leading to one-to-one adoption of technology the next couple of years because of the difference it made. So, kind of cool stories
Right.
from that data that you get.
Well, and I think even again as it gets bigger, and now that I have all of the secondary teachers using Edulastic, and they're going to be able to present that to their administrators. The administrators are going to be able to present that to the school board, and we're getting data we've never got before. Right. And so once the school board sees that, then we get support from the school board in technology. We can say, hey, this is why it's so important. And also I can truly say that my state test scores are typically higher than the other teachers. Also, truly believe it's because of our ability to practice all of these test type questions on Edulastic.
That's powerful.
My kids are just familiar with the technology, whereas the other classes aren't as familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. That's really, really strong. That's really great to hear as well. Cool. So for the teachers that are hearing this and thinking, wow, this sounds really great, what tips would you give them if they're interested in adopting digital assessment?
It's funny because I was thinking about tips, and my first reaction was jump in with both feet. I'm like, you just have to do it. You have to jump in and go for it. And then I know that freaks some people out. So then I'm like, okay, do you want to start with baby steps? And I guess in a way I started with baby steps. I started just doing my end of unit math assessments. And then it grew to pre-test, and then it grew to mid-module test, and now we're looking at doing our daily exit tickets and adding reading. So, part of me wants to say jump in and do it, but then I realize, that can be overwhelming. And so, yeah, just pick, a couple assessments through your curriculum. And again, depending on the curriculum that you use, a lot of the assessments are already pre-made in Edulastic. So it's not even like you have to go in and create questions, because I know Edulastic partners with Engage New York and a lot of the different programs. So you can actually go in and find Engage New York questions that match your test. And so I guess it's what you're comfortable with. If you're a jump in all the way kind of person, go for it. And if you've got to dip your toe in first, then dip your toe in and try little things. The other thing I would say is take the test yourself also. Even when I've created my own test, sometimes I've made mistakes in selecting the wrong answer and everything. So take the test, take a few minutes and go through the test. And I think for elementary also, well, I think the high school teachers even wanted this too, is have the kids solve the problem on paper too, so that you can, especially when we're talking math, so that you can see their work. So I think those are kind of my big tips.
Mm-hmm. Great. I think those are good, because sometimes if you want to try something new, you just gotta go for it if you really want the full experience of it. Otherwise, you might be missing out on little things.
Well, and then toss in one more tip too, because I think this is important.
Yeah.
Edulastic itself has a great support system. You guys are amazing, but then also all of us that are, the team innovators, reach out to somebody, find out if there's somebody in your state that's available to help you, find out if there's any trainings. But you guys yourself have so many awesome resources. So if you get stuck or you're worried about something, seek out help.
Yeah, I think that is a good point, because we have such a great innovator team in itself too. So, and so many people are willing to talk to other people and are excited about it. And again, like you and the other teachers who are on the Edulastic Innovator team, other teachers who are using Edulastic, it's just fun, I think, for you guys on the ground to be sharing what you're doing. And not only is it fun to share information with other people, but it just feels good, I think, to give and to share that. And
maybe, I think that's the nature of teachers, is we want to help everybody.
Yeah, that's true. You guys are the best. Awesome. So and also I'll just put out a plug. There's a new blog post on the blog about getting started with digital assessment. So if anyone's looking for more tips or advice, check out the Edulastic blog for that as well. Awesome. So let's go into some fun questions. Oh, actually, one more question about Edulastic. So you were saying that there are a lot of assessments online that you can get started with, like Engage and Why. What is it like to make your own assessment? Is that something you do often, and if so, is that easy enough to do, or what do you think?
Yeah, I I think it's really simple, and I've done it both ways, where I've actually gone in and actually taken my math assessment and then typed out the questions and created the questions that mimic exactly what my curriculum assessment looks like. But then I've also gone in just from the question bank and created questions, not created them, but pulled questions from the question bank. And again, I mean, I've been doing it for a while, but I mean, I can create my end of unit test with 20 questions on it. I can probably do it in about 10 minutes.
That's
So,
awesome.
it's just really simple to go through. And again, because even when you're creating the test, when you go to pull from the question bank, you go in and say, okay, I want a question that matches this specific standard. And so when I'm looking at my end of unit math curriculum, and it says, okay, they should have these 5 standards, I just go into Edulastic and say, okay, I need this standard, and I pull 3 questions. I need this standard, I pull 3 questions. I need this standard.
Nice.
And again, even with those questions, and I can make sure I vary them from multiple choice and drag and drop and matching and the things that they're going to see on the state test, so that there's a variety of test type questions that match all my standards.
Yeah, that's great. And there was that update recently, so hopefully that helps people who are looking for standards-based assessments. And that's a growing trend: standards-focused grading, standards-based grading.
And our report card is completely standard-based. So
it is. So you guys use it at your school.
Yeah.
Okay. How long have you been using it at your school, or using it in your teaching? Is that something you've been doing for a while?
I've been in this school district for 4 years, and we've had it all 4 years.
Oh, wow. And what do you think? How do you think that changes things for both the student and then also for the teacher when it comes to instruction?
I think kind of for both student and teacher, it really it's not just a grade of A, B, C, or D, or even passing or not passing. It's this specific standard. So if my standard is 4.12, can the student do this standard? Yes or no? Do they meet or exceed or not yet? So I think it's a lot, not safer, but kind of a safer report card. That it truly gives more data, because instead of just getting an A in math, it says, here's my 10 standards. This is what they can do, and this is what they can't do. Yeah. So I think it just gives valuable information to parents and to the student and to the teacher of, okay, if I'm meeting these standards and I'm not meeting these standards, then this is what we need to practice.
Yeah, and I think
not just an A in math or a C in math.
Right, that sounds a lot more meaningful, I think, because then
right.
Also students know what they're supposed to be achieving in a certain year, rather than you're supposed to learn math this year, you're supposed to learn geometry this year. I wish I had that when I was a student. I was a little lost with that. Yeah, that's cool, and that is something that I think a lot of teachers are looking into these days. So I'm glad that you brought that up as something that that you're working on and that you're doing at your school. I think that's really awesome. Okay, so we talked about your favorite book. I was going to ask about that because it's Book Lovers Day.
Yes. Well, I will add to that, though, too, because I was thinking about it, trying to pick a favorite book. And I think as my career has gone on, it's changed. My first 5 years, I read The First Days of School by Harry Wong every year.
Oh, okay.
That was like the book. And then in the middle of my career, it was kind of Teach Like a Champion, because I wanted to learn new strategies and revisit strategies for classroom management. And then, reading this book now, The Wild Card, has been, I needed to be remotivated. And so I think, it's changed as time goes on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the First Day of School book sounds very appropriate for what we're quickly approaching.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up soon, but I'll ask you a couple more questions and also let you say anything else if you had anything else to add. And then also if anyone online wanted to ask a question, give a little time for that. The next couple questions are just kind of light, fun questions. So I think this was something that you answered last year when we interviewed you on the Sunday Spotlight, and it's kind of a fun, I know you have a fun response to it, but what is your tactic for getting the class's attention or getting them quiet?
Well, even though I'm in Oregon, I'm a big Denver Bronco fan. So one of my favorite things is I say Denver and they say Broncos. Of course, I get some boys that don't really want to participate, but so I like to do callbacks. But that's one of the callbacks that I use. And again, but I do actually think it even helps me build a relationship with some of the boys, because they're like, oh, she likes football. So I think it helps build relationships. And I have Denver Bronco stuff all over my classroom. So
awesome. Give it a little bit of your personality.
Yes.
That's fun. And then if we walk into your classroom, what will we see? Like, how do you decorate your classroom?
Well,
Give a little
I'm
picture.
also a Donors Choose ambassador, so I've had 30 projects funded by Donors Choose. So I have flexible seating for my
Oh,
students.
nice.
So I have the yoga balls and wobble chairs and bean bags.
Ooh, comfy.
And then, like I said, I have a lot of technology. So I have one-to-one Chromebooks. We have 3D doodle pins. We have VR, virtual reality headsets.
Your class is fun. I want to come more.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, it's decorated. Just a lot of different Bronco stuff and all my anchor charts. And sometimes I feel like it's too busy, but when people come in, they say that it's welcoming and
sounds like it. Unless you don't like the Denver Broncos,
unless,
then it might not be
yes.
welcoming.
Yes. And both of my administrators do not like the Denver Broncos. So.
Let's get them fired up. Cool. And then what's your favorite time of the school year and why?
I actually, I don't mean this to sound bad, but it actually is the end of the year because I think it's really exciting being able to show students their growth. And the kids make their own digital portfolios. And so, I sit with them individually and show them whatever test or whatever district assessment we have, or even the Edulastic data themselves to show this is where you were at the beginning of the year. Look at, this is where you are now. And no matter what, all of them have growth. Some of them it might be this much, some of them might be this much, but they all have growth. And then they do student-led conferences with their parents, so they get to share that with their parents. And so I think it's such a celebration to be able to show them their growth. And no matter how big or small it is, they made growth, and I just think it's a great thing to celebrate with the students.
That's awesome, and I think that's a really special way to launch them into summer as well, feeling good about the year and what they did. So. That's awesome. I think that's a great question to end on, too, and a great answer. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, feel free to let us know. And then if you're also a replay viewer, now would be a great feel free to just leave your question on a tweet. Just tweet it out to Edulastic or Dena, and I'm sure Dena would be happy to follow up with the answer. Is there anything that you want to say before we head off?
I was just one more thing I think we had talked about earlier is like having the aha moments for Edulastic.
Yeah.
And I had to laugh because I seriously, I'm not kidding. Every time I give an Edulastic test, I have an aha moment.
Really?
because it might be that, like I said, okay, question number 18, they're all missing. Why are they all missing it? And so I have to figure that out. And then it might be reflecting on me that, I didn't do a good job teaching that. Or it might be the question itself. And then some of them, the kids honestly didn't know, like the drag and drops, they did it in reverse order, so every time it's an aha, it's like, I need to revisit this, or I need to teach this, or, my students have a hole in this area, so it seriously is every time we give a test, I have an aha moment.
That's awesome. That's so great too. Because you're going to be surprised about something and it keeps everything fresh and new. Cool. That's also a great note to end on. Cool. Thank you for sharing, Dena. Really appreciate it, the time you took to share. And I also want to give a little shout out and thank you to Naomi and Olivia, who are here behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly today. And again, if anyone has any follow-up questions for Dena, you can go ahead and send a tweet at Twitter at Edulastic, and we'll make sure it gets to you. If you see her Twitter handle, go ahead and you can tweet at her as well. But yeah, this is a really great way to launch into this Thursday series that we're going to have. And to put a little plug in for that, I will say that every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time or 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to bring the Edulastic community together for some sort of live event. Last week we did a Twitter chat. This week we are interviewing Dena, and we're going to be interviewing teachers on the second Thursdays of the month. And then next week, we're going to be doing an interview with an Edulastic team member. So some sort of behind-the-scenes thing. Next week, it'll be with Leslie Tyler, who is VP of Partnerships and Marketing. So that'll be a good one. And yeah, today it was such a pleasure talking to you, Dena. Thanks so much.
Yes, of course. It was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sign off the broadcast. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.